Good afternoon, this is Mrs. Haug. I just wanted to go ahead and go over the science fair project because there's usually a lot of questions about this. This year in 4th grade, all students will be creating their projects individually. Their first step is going to be due this week, so every week they have a task that they're doing. This week it is choose your testable question, so they are going to create or choose a question, and we talked about that in class today. For most people, I went ahead and checked off one that they could do. The goal is to either use something that is already in your house or something that can be purchased at Dollar Tree or something very easy to find, very inexpensive. For example, today we did an experiment on Skittles and hot water and cold water. So if you want to ask your child about that, that would be a good conversation to start out with. So just something like that, something easy to obtain. So today we talked about our testable question, and it should be on the back of their paper what they wrote down. So go ahead and go over that with them tonight. Then it says testable question. This is what is due Friday, so it needs to be written right here. That's what I'll be looking for. If they turn it in and it's a good testable question, then I'm going to go ahead and give them 100 points. Then next week they'll have the question and hypothesis form. That is inside of this packet. Also, I gave every student a packet today except for the ones who are absent. They will not be getting another one, and I have told them this multiple times. This packet is pretty large, so multiply that by 50 students. It's a lot of paper, so I cannot make any extra copies. It has to just be this, so they need to make sure they hold on to it, and everyone should have their name written on it. So each of these go in order per week. So a lot of people were freaking out like, oh, I think they're going to have to do the science fair project in 2 weeks, which is not true. It goes all the way until November 8th. So I'm going to go ahead and flip through it real quick. Right here is the rubric. This is how your child is going to get their points for science fair. So it's broken down into sections: scientific thought, scientific concepts, project creativity, display, and oral presentation. We will have a in-school science fair during the day, and we will have one at nighttime so that they can share their projects with you and present theirs. This accounts for 20%. It's the actual display. We should have trifold boards in the office for $1 for students to purchase. If not, you can find them at Dollar Tree, Michael's, any of those kind of stores. But they are $1 in the front office, and that will probably start in October, but they do not need that right this second. It's going to take at least a month for them to have to need that. Also, something I mentioned to them today, I do expect it to be typed if they want their full points in this section. They have access to type it at school if they don't have any access to that at home. I told them that they can type it here. I can print it out for them at home or print it on our printer at school. So it's not a big deal. Just if you want your full points on display, it needs to be typed. Also, that's what the district science fair expects. So we want to make sure that as many people as possible can go to district science fair. The next page is about the scientific method. This is just an example of the flow of the scientific method. Basically from here until the forms is all resource pages. So it goes step by step in how to choose your project, how to conduct research, how to create a testable question, which that's what's due this week, how to create a hypothesis. This is very important. It has to always be written as an if-then statement. So that's what I'll be looking for when that comes. Then they're going to design their experiment with their materials and procedures, controls, and variables. We practiced that today with our experiment. Then they finally conduct their experiment, do their observations, and record their data. On their poster somewhere, they need to have a chart or a graph or something to show their data in that graphical form. Okay, here's where they analyze their data and they finally draw their conclusion. So that would be the final step for them. Here's a sample of what an experiment could look like. We also did one in class today. This last step, and I told them to cross that out in their book, is not necessary. They are not in 5th grade yet, so they do not need an abstract. So I'm going to go ahead and cross that out, which they should have done in class. And finally, we get to the section that has all of the forms. So this is the question and hypothesis form, and you'll see that they go in order just like on the front. For example, we have question and hypothesis form due next Friday. That is what is in here. We have research plan due the next week, and that's the next page. So they're going to know what to do on every page, and if they forget, there are resources in here to tell them what to do. Okay, so for their question and hypothesis, they're going to go ahead and do their project title. The project idea category we'll talk about later. They need to write their testable question, a hypothesis to answer that question, and a note of anything. And that will be due next Friday. So basically it's 1 page per week. For their research plan the following week, they're going to write their testable question, their hypothesis again, and then they're going to find 4 sources to find information. For example, today we talked about the Skittles in hot water or cold water. They could have searched on the internet, does candy dissolve faster in hot water or cold water? They could have done research on the actual Skittles, anything like that. They would write their source and what kind of information they got. On the next page, they're going to talk about their experiment. What I'm looking for here is basically all the procedures. So first I'm going to do this, next, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and go ahead and write down all of the steps to the experiment. And here, this is all of the materials. For example, today we use hot water, cold water, a cup, Skittles, etc. You're going to go ahead and put that there. And also at every page it says question. All that they're doing is rewriting the testable question just in case anything gets pulled out of here. This one is for variables. This is something that sometimes kids struggle with. We've talked about hypothesis and all the different variables, but they may need assistance with this. But it does say something that is kept the same throughout the experiment, something that you change or something that responds. So they should be able to label that for every experiment. So today, something that we kept the same was the cups, the amount of water. What we changed was the temperature of the water, and what responded was how fast the Skittles dissolved. We used this in class today. This was some science project ideas. If they want to revisit their idea, or you decide that the idea that they chose was not going to be good for them, or you don't have the resources available, that's no problem. There are tons of them on this page and on the back of that page. This is a list of resources that are helpful for science fair that you could possibly use. This is the safety approval form. We don't have to worry about this yet. Basically, just if you want to go ahead and sign, it's all that it means is that the science fair project is safe, but since they're completing it at home, you already acknowledge that it's safe. All right, this is a very important page. So once it comes time to compile all of that information on their trifold board and get ready for science fair, which I believe is going to be on November 20 something. I'll get back to you on that date. It's going to have 3 sides. So it has to be a trifold board, which will be a middle, a left side, and a right side. And this is exactly the order of what it should be on the board. So they're going to have a title, procedures, their data, which includes charts, graphs, photos, or sketches, which we talked about already. On the right, they're going to have materials, variables, and a conclusion. And then on the left, we're going to have a problem statement and hypothesis. But we are not going to have the abstract, which they should have marked out in class today, because once again, they're not in 5th grade. They do not have to do an abstract. And I'm going to go ahead and cross that out there. So once they have completed it, I go ahead and suggest that they should check it off. All of this does need to be typed nice and clean. We can do it in class or at home. I'll probably send it home so that they can put it together with you and you can see it and make sure that everything's okay. I do expect them to ask you for some help during this, and I so appreciate your cooperation and your time. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask me. All right, thank you.